Sorry.
Can we just get on with this, please?
Yep, you're ready to go.
I've known your daughter Roseanne already for 8 years. I very much like her, and I also very much love her. She is very clever, beautiful, and excellent girl. Today, I come to ask you for your daughter's hand in marriage. I promise I will forever love her, and I will try and be a good husband to her. I hope to get you to give your blessing for our marriage. Please speak to me in English, because my Chinese is still very poor. It's the whole thing.
My name is Roseanne Wenshin Liang. In Chinese, Wenshin means graceful happiness, or graceful one who brings happiness, or something about grace and happiness, which is apparently lost on me. I'm 27 and I'm a fledgling filmmaker. I live at home with my parents, in a small study room graced with dust, comic books, and a camp bed that I've slept in since I was 15, the age when I declared independence and refused to sleep in the bedroom I'd shared since childhood with my two sisters, Renee and Rhea. My childhood was pretty great as far as I can remember. As was customary for the youngest, I was spoiled and indulged all over the place, which is all good by me. From an early age, my mother had us schooled in piano, ballet, violin, piano, speech and drama, tennis, ice skating, and more piano, in the hopes of finding our inner creative geniuses. But once we were too old for that, we were told to cut off any extracurricular leanings and concentrate instead on getting A's. Dutifully, we were one by one crowned ducks of our private pinafore girls' school, and might I add, following in the footsteps of my impossibly intelligent sisters was a feat of academic bloody-mindedness that left me lacking in all social skills, especially around boys. Okay, so I was a teenage nerd. Who else would go to the school ball looking like this? I mean, black velvet and red satin was bad enough, but a ringlet hairpiece? Would you believe that I insisted on wearing my glasses because not doing so would compromise my individuality, which of course explains the ringlet hairpiece. Oh God, was I a late bloomer? It made sense that when I reached university, I promptly fell hopelessly and pathetically for the university video librarian, a golden-skinned intellectual Adonis who led me on the path of cinematic righteousness.
Have you seen Citizen Kane? I hear it's quite good.
Seeing as I was too much of a dork to actually say anything to him, I would instead stalk him and secretly write him really bad love letters. How bad?
Oh no! God! Okay. Nectar of crush of lust. Oh, purge it before the year is out. Sweet prince, was it better I not know you, for now you are perfect. My first love, you are better so. I am lonely and best so. Oh, don't say that.
I must have been the biggest lovelorn idiot this side of the equator. I was desperate for some infinitesimal molecule of charm or cool or anything that could redeem me. Surprisingly, it came. Not long after, in the form of, well, this guy. More precisely, Stephen got the courage to ask me out after 1 year of poking me with a fencing foil in the university swords club. Lamentably, our first date to the new version of Star Wars was spent with my curious friends and an over-friendly guy who was eager to extol the virtues of growing sphagnum moss, apparently the primary absorbent ingredient in ladies' hygiene pads. It could only get better. And it did. Stephen. Let's stop to watch him for a while. Chocolate scoffing, toy playing, silly song singing Stephen. let's watch him some more. I know what you're thinking, and it doesn't stick, because as much as one nerd by herself is sad, two nerds in love is actually cool. You just need one other person to dig your tune and you've got a reason not to care what anyone else thinks, which is, I've deduced, what being cool is all about. My mother and father grew up in a completely different world to the one I know. Both were the eldest of large families. Both started their early lives in a climate of hardship and struggle. Gifted with exceptional smarts and a good measure of stubbornness, both of them scholarshiped their own way through a prestigious education in Hong Kong. They met in college as a young doctor and nurse, and they fell in love, courted and married. Fresh with ideals of a wonderful new life together, they immigrated to 1970s New Zealand, the perfect place to start their dreams together. They bought this house in the exclusive suburb of Remuera, Auckland, surrounded on all sides by white upper-class posh, and proceeded to show them what great New Zealanders we could all be. We were on New Zealand's TVs with all the right answers, shaking the Mayor of Auckland's hand, in their town halls winning trophies and prizes in the Queen's own English. China has never let itself be known for underachievement, and the Liangs had cultivated a mini one right here in modesty-steeped, tall poppy-syndromed white suburbia. It's funny how the relationship between a Chinese child and parent changes. I see grown New Zealanders hugging and kissing their mums and dads, something I would never do, something I don't really remember doing. It did happen, I know that now. It just must have stopped when we were really young. I wish I could remember when. But it's funny how the relationship between a Chinese child and parent changes when the child becomes an adult. So according to Chinese tradition, a Chinese daughter isn't supposed to leave her home until she's married. But even the smallest things precipitated a threat of disownment. Going flatting, even with friends, meant disownment. Staying the night at a friend's house, female or otherwise, could mean disownment. This is the eve of my graduation. Graduation's done, so what's new? We were young and easily amused. I don't even know why my father chose that night to pull out the whole tired disownment thing. Maybe he knew it was tired, I mean he fought so hard. But that night, I fought back. People are always going on about how we only take pictures of happy times, smiling faces say cheese and all that. This was my graduation photo, the pose studio one that my mum always insists on. That camera caught everything. Our best clothes, our best smiles. The pale and puffy face from crying last night. The way a smile looks wonky after a restless sleep. I see grown New Zealanders discussing politics and personal relationships with their parents, and it's something I've learnt never to do. These days, the distance between my parents and me is tenuously bridged with conversations about the weather, food, or my mother telling me how fat I've become on non-Chinese food. I have no interest in the endless parade of scenery and food that the Chinese TV network somehow manages to enchant them with, and they don't seem to take any interest in my chosen career of filmmaking, let alone the films I've made. My mother only sees the long hours I work for so little financial gain and despairs, while I see her wasting her time in front of the TV and do likewise. The generation gap has grown so wide that we've given up shouting across the chasm. The more I think about it, the more I realise that the reason why I'm doing this is because it's the only way I can tell my parents what I really think without escalating into mutual deafness. I mean, isn't it funny that how when you're really screaming to make yourself heard, it's the least likely time for anyone to be listening? I don't know why I'm doing this. If my last few films are anything to go by, why would I expect them to watch this? I went to China once with my mum on some god-awful flag-waving tourist cruise down the Yangtze. And we came to these stone carvings depicting different scenes of filial piety. There was this one with a mother greeting her 30-year-old son, and I couldn't read the characters, but suddenly my mum pointed and said, look, see, you know, no matter how old you are, you will always be my child. Always her child, you know, forever the child. I mean, it's comforting, but it's frustrating as well. Whenever me and my father disagree on anything, he always says, you need to learn the Chinese way, Roseanne, you need to respect the Chinese way. Over the years, I've discovered that respect under the Chinese way actually means that the superior is always right and one shows one's respect by keeping one's mouth shut. On one rare occasion of clarity, my father said to me, "The Chinese way is not to say, 'I love you.' If everything we do shows you that we love you, we do not need to say, 'I love you.' Your mother cooks you breakfast every morning. I work hard every day to buy you the freshest, best food to eat. We paid for coaching, we gave you the best education. Aren't these things enough to show you that we love you?" I don't know what was wrong with me. I didn't mean to seem ungrateful, but all I could think was, if you go to all that trouble to show me that you love me, why can't you just say it too? I mean, why can't you just say it? I know that they love me. I know that everything they've done has been to make me the best possible person that I can be. But I just wish they could see me, they could take me seriously as my own person. I don't know what will happen if they see this. Maybe they'll disown me. But maybe they won't.
I think any time that you leave the home country, you become aware in your first few days or weeks in your new country that it's a very different world. And naturally, when you have children, you want to give them a taste of the home country. So in a way, you overcompensate. You drag them out to Chinese New Year events, and you take them out to lantern festivals and mooncake festivals, and make them learn Chinese and all this. And it's that feeling of being very different in this new country that makes you hang so tightly onto the traditions of your home country, so much so that 20 or 30 years down the track, which is now, you're still hanging on to those even when your siblings and your traditions back home have moved on, they've westernized. So you've kind of become fossilized in what it was when you left your home country.
Casey I met through my group of university friends, and I didn't think there would be any problem going out with him. But a few days after we started going out, I just mentioned to Mummy casually that, I'm seeing this boy, the boy that was here last night. And her first reaction was, "I'm not going to your wedding," which was a slightly strange reaction for a relationship which was 2 days old. I can't remember what Daddy's immediate reaction was, but I think it was his usual, which was not commenting but observing, and then moving on to just suddenly bowling me up in a corridor one day and mentioning that he didn't approve of me seeing a European boy. And then from there it just deteriorated.
Casey came from a very relaxed family, typical New Zealand family, and in something that was quite unusual for us, he called his parents by their first names. So his mother was known as Sally. I can't remember the name of his father, but so he greeted them by their first names, which I noticed amongst my Western friends wasn't that unusual. He clearly applied this to our family, which was perhaps the wrong thing. So one of the few times he actually got let into the house and kind of was in the front hallway waiting for Renee to do something, and Dad happened to come down the stairs not realising that he'd actually come in through the front door. So first of all, Dad was on the back foot because he didn't have his dentures in, and so he was a bit, and Casey thought he'd be friendly, and so he said, "Hello, Ellen," which was the way he would greet his own parents, but not the way to greet Dr. Alan Leung. What he should have said is, hello, Dr. Liang. Actually, what would have been better is if he'd just ducked out of the house and left.
It was 1997. I was 19, he was 20. We were young and inexperienced. It came as no surprise that both my sisters advised against telling my parents, at least until we were sure. At 1 year, we had mastered the thrill of love letters and late-night phone calls. At 2 years, I had graduated to the usual strategic half-truth designed to prolong a night out. At 4 years, the love letters were bound into this hefty tome, which could be a thesis on the idiocy of cross-cultural subterfuge. At 5 years, the love letters had been replaced by a dull normalcy. Due to my parents' concession that I could stay out as long as I wanted, on the condition that I came home to sleep, I would stay with Stephen until he got sleepy. Then I'd get into my car and drive home to my little study with my little camp bed where I would sleep. I used to cry on the drive home, but these days, that seems a little melodramatic. To me, the most romantic meal between couples is not the candlelit dinner, but a leisurely breakfast. It's the meal that smells, tastes, feels the best because it signifies how there is so much pleasure just spending ages together. On a great leisurely breakfast, apologising for morning breath with bedhead, eyes half closed after a restless night caused by another warm body in bed. These things are to me the most romantic symptoms of love. At 5 years, the number of leisurely breakfasts I'd had with Stephen could be counted on one hand.
I mean, your sisters have been through this before, and your oldest sister has been through it and is going through it now, in even more extreme circumstances, isn't she?
She only went through the first part of it, not the actual marriage thing.
Right.
She had a harder time of it because she, as the oldest daughter, she always broke the ground. So her first serious boyfriend was white, and my parents just refused to speak to him or of him at all. And when he tried to approach them, they got quite hostile, and it was tragic. My sister moved to Sydney, and he kind of moved to live together, and my parents kind of always knew that they'd moved to live together. So out of sight, out of mind, absence makes the heart grow fonder and all that stuff. So they didn't really hold it against her. And then they were kind of deciding that they weren't going to be together anyway, but they were each other's first loves, I think. And he died.
Casey passed away unexpectedly, and of course I was absolutely devastated. And I remember thinking I flew home immediately to, I flew home really more for comfort, and of course to be there with his family at the funeral. But I remember Mummy and Daddy being very distant. I remember thinking they're not able to acknowledge the grief, the utter, because, during that week I had, I was basically not sleeping. I was crying all the time. I had a car crash, and I was just constantly on the phone to my friends, just crying all the time. And I didn't get a word of comfort from them because I don't think they knew how to cope with how it was. I can't help thinking that they were almost, but not quite, pleased that maybe the problem had gone away, or hopeful that maybe the problem had gone away. And one of the things that Daddy said to me was, later, which I found highly inappropriate, was, well, maybe this time you'll find a Chinese boy. And I remember just looking at him and going, and thinking, you really have no idea, do you, of of what this relationship meant to me. You you know, what do you mean next time? I mean, yes, there's going to be a next time, but, you know, and I can't just choose. I can't just flip a button and go, oh yeah, sorry, I'm only looking at Chinese boys now. Sorry, yeah.
It was a tough time when he finally made this concession, right? He had 2 of his daughters in tears and yelling at him and accusing him of not being human over Chinese traditions, which is pretty harsh criticism. And so he said, I'll give you a way out, and this is the way out. If your boyfriend, you know, it's not the colour of his skin, even though before he says he's racist. He finally said, it's not because I'm racist, it's because what the colour of his skin denotes, which is a non-understanding of the Chinese culture, and the way that he can show me that he's interested in the Chinese culture is to learn the language.
I remember him being very vulnerable at this stage and saying to us, look, it's been very, very hard for me to get to this point where I can say this to you, because the Confucian way is that fathers do not defer to daughters ever. And it's not easy for me to do this, but this is what I've decided, and I will allow you to try and gain my approval by doing this. So that was his message.
我认识您的女儿 Roseanne 已经8年了，我很喜欢她，我也很爱她。Roseanne 是一个很优秀也很聪明的女孩。今天我来是想向你的女儿求婚，我发誓我会永远爱她，做一个好丈夫。我希望能得到你给我们婚姻的祝福。请您说英文好吗？因为我的中文还不是很好。
I've never studied any foreign language for more than, a small amount of time. And Chinese, they say, is, you need maybe twice or 3 times the amount of study than, say, Spanish to get to a... When you see the numbers, you think, that's not so bad, really, because, people pick up Spanish pretty quickly. It is hard. I mean, let's face it. I've been doing lessons for 6 months, and when the teacher talks in Chinese, I pick up words here and there. I don't go, and know what she says. I kind of pick up words and then take a guess, and I'm wrong at least half the time if it's something. Sometimes she'll say, okay, I'll say something and see if you can understand it. And sometimes it's really simple, like unbelievably simple, and she'll say it slowly. And other times she'll just blah, blah, blah for like 10 seconds, and I'll be like, I make a kind of mental note of the words I understand, but it's very difficult because the sentence structure is so different as well. I just want to say, I don't understand you say what.
Can you say that?
我不明白你说什么.
Don't you think it's, yeah, you think it's unfair, right? I think it's unfair. I mean, being a Kiwi, I think it's really unfair, especially as, my sister's Chinese husband doesn't speak a word of Chinese, and he's got a free ticket through because he's the colour of his skin, and, but I don't know. I mean, it's like my dad's on a little bit of a power trip, I think. I mean, it reminds me of those crazy fairy tales where a king would tell the courting prince to go and, kill the dragon for the princess's hand in marriage, I mean, I'm blowing it out of proportion here, but it seems similar, don't you think?
Yeah.
我认识您的女儿 Roseanne 已经8年了。
我认识您的女儿 Roseanne 已经8年了。
再读一遍。的女儿 Roseanne 已经8年了。我很喜欢她。我也很爱她。
我很喜欢她。Is that it?
We're a few days away from the big proposal, and a couple of days ago we received an email from my auntie who said that my dad has decided that the minimum requirements for bestowing a blessing on our marriage is for Stephen to be able to conduct a simple conversation in Chinese. And previously it was just that he learned Chinese for a certain period of time. You know, Daddy did a course in Chinese, but now, I mean, I don't know if the goalposts have changed actually, but I'm a bit nervous because my dad could say anything in a simple conversation, from saying hello, which would be great, because Stephen can do that, to he could ask anything. He could ask any manner of things, and Stephen wouldn't know.
我想喝点东西9点钟
9点钟。
9点钟
你想过一会儿去北京饭店喝一点东西吗？
想
He didn't specifically. I don't recall him specifically saying that the proposal had to be in Chinese.
That was my idea.
That was your yeah. But
Going the
that
extra
was
mile.
going the extra mile. Absolutely. He also didn't mention anything about having to hold basic conversation in Chinese. He just
As long
said
as I know what
that.
the conversation is beforehand.
Yeah. He said
Well,
that's right. You can learn it like the French, according to the language tag. In fact, he may not actually get to make the speech in Mandarin if the experiences of others of my friends. Anything
You
to
know,
go
that has
by
crossed my mind.
because would-be Romeos were actually met at the door with like baseball bats and various other items, which I don't think my dad's got a baseball bat, but he's got a hockey stick.
No, we're going to sound him out on the phone first.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
Just
And
like
he's got a really expensive tennis racket.
It's a little bit like the royal family, you know. Sorry. think about the way your father's king of the house. The royal family doesn't have any power, but there are lots of rituals and traditions that go along with that, and people treat them with a certain respect. But ultimately, if they don't hold any power over, you know, the empire anymore. So in a way, your parents don't hold any power over, you know, the empire of the children. And so, but it's still a reasonable thing to show respect to them, and I'm happy to do that. I don't feel unlucky for having to do this. It's not like I'm having to saw off my left hand or anything.
That might be next.
Well, you know, we'll treat every situation, you know, as it comes.
As it arises.
There's a new opportunity. What's the ultimate outcome for you? What would you really like to happen?
for them to acknowledge him, you know, and acknowledge that he's a really important part of my life, and that he's shaped a lot of my adult self, because he has. We've been together longer than a lot of marriages have lasted, and I want my parents, who mean a lot to me, to recognise how important he is. I have stupid dreams about my father and Stephen going fishing together, or sharing a brewski, or I don't know, just gardening, or my dad teaching Stephen to cook, because you know, my dad loves to cook, and I mean, it would be lovely, but I don't think it's going to happen.
做一个好丈夫、好老公，发誓我会永远爱他。女儿求婚是想向你们的女儿求婚。我发誓我会永远爱他，做一个好丈夫、好老公。
做一个好丈夫。今天我来是想向你的女儿求婚。我发誓我会永远爱她。
I just watched all these videos, all these home videos. I'm doing the research for this documentary, and I guess I'm just working out all these parental issues. I don't know. I didn't want to seem ungrateful. For making this about my parents, because I've grown so distant with them, and these videos are like documents of
parental love, and it's exactly what my father said about not showing love. I mean, not saying I love you, like, and just showing it, and how my mother was always on hand, and how she was always such a great mother. And I don't know how you feel about it. You said a couple of days ago that that some part of you wanted it to stay like this, you know, Stephen. Because you'd heard such horrible things about my parents through me, and I said that was just that was just my that was just one side of the story. You hadn't heard their side, because you've never really talked to my parents, and you know, when you were watching these things with me, I just thought, well, maybe you get a different view of it, you know, maybe that will give you a little bit of perspective, you know. Stupid snot. I hate how when you cry you just get completely disgusting physically.
You're lovely.
But I just wanted to say that I don't know, I'm feeling like I need to record this moment, you know, it's quite a big moment for me. Because I don't know why, crystallized my thoughts for me. Why am I getting so emotional about this? Because it's all tied in together, right? That my relationship with my parents, my bad relationship with my parents, and then me realizing it's that everything they're talking about is true, that they really do love me, you know, and
Doesn't mean they can't show it a bit more.
but they do, they have.
But that's many, many years ago, and they can't hide behind Chinese culture all the time, saying that that's not our way to show it, to say they love you. It's not going to hurt them once in a while to say they love you.
I don't know, I mean, maybe it's just the Chinese way. Maybe I should accept that, I know. Maybe you're talking from a purely Western point of view, I mean, I don't know. You really want me to leave?
What?
You really want me to leave?
I think that might work quite well.
Okay. Come and find me.
Okay.
That's pretty contrived, actually.
No, it isn't.
I'll be in your room.
Hello, Dr. Liang. It's Stephen Harris here. How are you? I'm Roseanne's boyfriend. Hi, I was just wondering if I could maybe make a time to come and meet you to talk about my future with Roseanne. Is that okay? Oh, okay. You want to talk about it with Mrs. Liang first? Okay. When should I get back in touch with you? Around 10 o'clock. Okay, I will. Thanks very much. Bye. I'm finished.
What?
He wants to talk to your mum about it first.
Is he on the phone?
No.
What?
Stop it rolling. Stop it rolling.
No. Oh my god.
What's the problem?
Did he sound okay?
He sounded fine. Why have you got your hands like that?
Oh my god.
What? is the problem?
Nothing. I'm just really nervous now. Because I haven't even talked to my mum about this. What's she gonna say? She's never met you. She doesn't want to meet you.
Well, it's crunch time. Whatever happens, happens.
Oh, I'm overreacting. Alright, 10 o'clock.
Hello, is that Dr. Liang? Hi, it's Stephen again. How are you? Have you talked to Mrs. Liang? Okay. Oh, that would be great. Okay. Okay, so, all right. So I'll get Roseanne to talk to you. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye. Well, he keeps it brief.
Awful. It's just the most awful thing that could happen.
Why?
It's not the most awful thing that could happen, but it's like... Oh, God. Shit. Fucking
Shit, fucking hell.
My mum doesn't want to get involved, I mean...
Yeah, I know, that's pretty bad.
God. I'm in for a big yelling when I get home, aren't I? If he says no, it depends on what circumstance he says no. But actually no, it doesn't matter, because whatever reason he gives, it won't be enough. You know, I mean, my prince has gone and fought the dragon, but yeah, I mean, he's gone above and beyond the call of duty, and I will say to my father, well, really, there is nothing more that we can do to please you. I mean, what do you expect, you know, to inject his skin with keratin to make him yellow and then do plastic surgery on his eyelids or something? I mean, is that what he wants? It's just so ridiculous. So I don't know what I'll do. Most probably I'll still stay at home, but we'll go on with the wedding plans, and then I'll say, well, we're going to get married, because the only way that I can move out of home is to get married, and I guess we'll just have to get married without their blessing, and so at least they'll know that we're married and that I can move out. I don't know.
What is it that's stopping you from leaving?
I guess I've never called their bluff on the disownment thing. They've always just threatened it, and I've gone, all right, I don't want to be disowned. So I can't actually imagine what the disownment period will be like. It's basically my parents not talking to me, which isn't that much of a loss, to be honest. But it is in terms of basic humanity. I mean, it's your mother and father. They're always going to be your mother and father. And they raised you and they looked after you when you were sick. And my mother cooked me breakfast every morning. And it's like, I want to thank them for what they've given to me. But if they're so quick to disown me, then... I mean, I've got to do it sooner or later, right? I mean, I can't just continue to be the little child living at home and eating the breakfast. So I guess I'm afraid of what has to happen, really. I mean, it's like a cutting of the apron strings. It's necessary. It's something I necessarily need to do to become my own person, to become an adult. So yeah, it's going to be hard. I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid that my parents will feel that they've failed in me, but it has to be done. First of all, my father said, I don't want to. For some reason, he didn't want to make the time or the place for the meeting with Stephen on the phone. So he said send Roseanne home. When I talked to Roseanne at home, then we'll make the decision. And I thought that meant that he had some words for me. But in the end, it was really easy because I just came home and he was watching television, and he kept watching television, and I just asked him, so what's happening? And he said, just name a time and a place, and I'll try and be there. So we negotiated 4 p.m. today, and except my mum, on that first night I came home, I said, hi mum, and she didn't say anything. And she just kind of was making dinner in the way that you make dinner when you're really angry. Like, not angry, but just there was a tension in the air anyway. So she continued to make dinner, and I just thought, okay, well, I'm just going to leave her because basically my dad said over the phone that she just wanted no part. She didn't want to say yes or no. She didn't want to be involved. She didn't want to know at all. The next morning when she cooked me breakfast, we were just back to talking about breakfast and food and where she got the food from and whether or not this was fresh or not, and just mundane things, and it's like nothing had even happened. So I think she's in major denial, and I think that she just doesn't want to know about it, and I don't think the chances of her, even if my dad says yes, I don't think the chances of her attending any kind of union or wedding or anything like that, I think the chances of her attending are really low, which is hard and really difficult to accept, but I have this idea that maybe, you know, I'll live in some kind of weird limbo with her, you know, so long as I don't talk about Stephen or something, I don't know. Jesus. You don't mind, do you? My mum really is a nice person, I mean, you represent the loss of your daughter, but I don't think it should be that way. This is our hideout.
Why won't he drive past this exact point?
He will, but he won't be looking for us.
Sounds like a bulletproof plan.
It is bulletproof.
He won't be looking for us.
He won't be looking for us. Why? I've driven past that point many times, and I've never looked in this direction. Now, why would he look in this direction? He might see you walking to a place that's not in the car park and wonder where you've gone. But I don't know. By that time, it'll be too late anyway, right? I don't know. Don't you think? It will be too late. Anyway, he won't mind that that I'm here. I mean, he'll understand why.
He will mind the camera anywhere near him, I'm sure of that.
It'll be so cool. You just have to hide, I guess. I guess Stephen's going to be doing the hard part now. He's doing all the hard stuff now, but I've got cause to be nervous, I guess. Because even if my dad says no, it'll be my estrangement with my family. That's going to be the fallout from there. Could be a long way, could be really short, and then my dad would be quite short.
Quite economical, is he?
He tends to be straight and to the point. He doesn't really know Stephen. He doesn't really have any reason to talk to him for longer than he needs to. But he did say coffee, and it does take a certain amount of time to drink the coffee.
It does.
Stephen's intuition is that it's not going to be a yes or no. It's going to be kind of somewhere in between. So... And I'm just like... why isn't it ever a straight answer with Chinese people, you know? Why isn't it ever just what it is, you know? Honesty. Politeness and all that. Just stuff. It's steeped with saying what you mean in roundabout ways. It's like... I guess it's not just Chinese. For instance, if you're on the phone, right? And you don't, and someone says hi, and you don't really want to talk to them, and they don't normally call you for no reason, like you'll talk to friends, right? For no reason, they'll go hey, and you start talking. But if you really want to know what's happening and you don't really have time to talk, you go, hey, and they go, hey, and then you go, so what's up? And you don't really mean, what's up? You mean, tell me why you've called, that is my dad.
You've spotted the vehicle.
I have.
Well, he's not late.
Yeah, that's good. And amongst all the butterflies, there's always a little bit of something, you know, like, what if this all turns out great? But, you know, actual real life experiences have taught me that it's never like that. Although sometimes it'll just happen, you know, sometimes great things will just happen to you. Have you ever had that? Just out of the blue, and you go, when am I going to get that again, and where is it going to come from, and if I'm expecting it, probably won't happen, and, you know, just, yeah, the things that are worthy of, that you dream about happening, you know? Like, I don't know, getting into a great festival or something. Yeah, or things like that. I mean, winning an award that you've always wanted to win. It'll just come, and I guess I'm afraid to hope for it, because if I anticipate it, then it won't happen. Because those things you can't anticipate, they just happen. Just kind of a stupid way of thinking about life or anticipating good luck. I have a tendency to ramble.
It's a good way of getting things off your mind, though, eh?
Yeah, you should try. Anything bugging you, I'll turn the camera on you and you can... yeah, you can vent. Gosh, I should be paying you like a therapist.
So do you reckon that Stephen could, who do you reckon would win in a fight?
My dad would definitely win.
Would he?
He's short and fast. And Stephen's lanky. Although Stephen's done Tai Chi as well.
But Stephen's got a long reach.
It's true. But it'll just be like that Bruce Lee film where he goes to the top level and then he fights with that basketballer. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do actually.
Jumpsuit.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and he thinks about... First he's getting his ass kicked and then he goes, aha, now I think I know how I'm going to do it. And I can't remember how he does it, but he manages to get in past the guy's really long reach and sort of deal him a few blows.
Yeah, do the quick punches, and take him out. Yeah, but as you said, your dad's a doctor, so if something does happen, he can patch him up.
I think I see that's my dad.
See anything?
Yeah, that's my dad.
Okay.
He looks apprehensive. Fuck. Oh, fuck.
Hello.
Hi.
No, I wasn't shaking my head.
You were shaking your head! You bastard! My heart just fell just right then.
Well, let's wait till I get into the car.
You looked at me, you were striding towards me. We've got it on camera. You were going like this. You were like this and you were going like that.
I was shaking my head because it's like, I can't believe I'm walking towards a car and someone's filming me do it.
Fuck you, Stephen. Tell me how it went.
Oh, it went well. There's unfortunately kind of a yes but.
Oh, God.
As I expected.
It's a yes, though.
Well, we have his blessing, but we don't have your mother's. And so if we don't have your mother's, then we don't have the full blessing. Apparently, it's quite important that you learn how to read and write as well.
That's got nothing to do with it.
Well, my influence on you doing that is a plus for me.
It's true, he's using you as a carrot for me to learn Chinese. They've always wanted me to learn Chinese. It's got nothing to do with whether or not we can be married. It's about their hopes and dreams for me and me learning to speak Chinese.
But it's also always it's a disappointment to them that you aren't more Chinese, essentially.
So you're being the carrot.
I don't know what you mean.
They're making you influence me to learn Chinese.
That would be a plus.
It's ridiculous.
It's that fighting Liang spirit coming through. It's not worth getting hit up about this at this point.
Okay, no. Yay!
Or we can
Okay.
Come here. Do you want to put the ring on then?
I haven't seen the ring. What did he say? First of all, don't show me. What did he say about the ring? Did he see the ring?
No, he didn't want to see it. He said, that's between you and Roseanne.
Oh.
You're not proposing to me. And I felt like a complete wally. Thanks to Ria and Renee for that sound advice for bringing the ring along.
But that's what Brad did. But that's what Brad did.
Who gives a ring to a grown-up man in a cafe?
You don't give it to him. You don't give it to him.
I put it on the table and said, I had this ring made for Roseanne. And he said, that's fine. That's for Roseanne. It's not for me. So there you go.
Well, you shouldn't feel like a wally, because I don't know. I'll take off your sweater while you give it to me.
There you go. Ding.
Yay! Should I? You have to put it on me.
Do I put it on you?
I think. Does he put it on me? I don't know.
Alright, give us your finger.
This is so romantic.
Oh, it's a perfect fit. Ding.
I guess that's it. That's not it. That's not it.
You might want to demist all this.
Yeah. So are we engaged?
Absolutely. Just might. How long that is subject to.
You have to do the honours.
What honours?
You know the honours.
What honours?
You know the honours.
What's that?
Okay. No. Okay.
Don't take it off.
No. Say.
Roseanne, will you marry me?
Yes. Yay. You know, you've got to hand it to the guy. Hats off, everyone. I'm not under any illusions. It's not happily ever after, it's never happily ever after. I hate those cross-cultural love stories where after everything, the parents beam at the young lovers and say, oh whoops, we were wrong to hold on to our antiquated value systems and see now that you were right all along. Let us embrace Western liberalism without question. Don't deceive yourself that once this happy scene fades out, the following years won't be peppered with family feuds, wrong turns and heartache, because it will. But just to set the record straight, I understand where my parents are coming from now. I can't help but love them, and it's true, everything they do shows me that the feeling's mutual. I know there's a lot of hard work on the way and that responsibility isn't theirs, it's mine. There's a long way for me to go, and a lot for me to do before I realise where I stand culturally, emotionally. All the same, I'm prepared for complexity, for change. Life is exactly these things, unpredictable, sometimes wonderfully so. As for the whole metaphor of the banana, yellow on the outside, white on the inside, ha-ha, well, quite frankly, I resent the concept, because I've never thought of myself as white or any colour on the inside, apart from pinky red, which, let's face it, we all are. Anyway, I think I've said what I want to say. My story isn't extraordinary. It's certainly not new. I wanted to tell it because I wanted to hear it. I know there are so many stories out there a bit like mine, only more exciting, more amazing, and I want to hear them all. I'll never get sick of hearing them, even if in the end they're all about the same thing, which is this. Life can be hard, but you never know when it might cut you some slack. Exciting, more amazing. And what you've seen up to this point is the original Banana in a Nutshell. But the story doesn't quite end there. If you've watched this far, chances are you'll want to know what happened, especially with my parents, with Stephen and the wedding, if there even was one. I'll tell you now, there was. And I promise I'll get to that bit soon. But first of all, I should show you what happened immediately after I finished the film.
Banana in a Nutshell.
Banana in a Nutshell.
Banana in a Nutshell.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure and a privilege to introduce you to Roseanne Liang, is that right?
Yep, that's the one. Now, multiculturalism is a very hot topic at the moment, obviously.
Roseanne's doco is titled Banana in a Nutshell, and by the sounds of it, you'll need to be quick.
If the wedding doesn't go well, that'll be the worst wedding home video thing coming.
As I was close to finishing the film, I decided to try and enter it into the New Zealand International Film Festival. My hopes weren't high, especially as it wasn't even finished, and I'd been turned down twice before.
Well, it really just kind of glowed off the screen at me and said, choose me. It's a completely engaging film, and the only thing about its selection for the festival that was slightly chancy was that it was submitted about 2 minutes before we went to the printers.
Forget Romeo and Juliet.
To put it mildly, everyone was interested in Banana in a Nutshell. Because I didn't have anyone to blame except myself, I decided to go along with it. It was exciting, but also really nerve-wracking. Talking to myself in a darkened room is very different to talking to the whole nation. Rather than go it alone, I brought in the cavalry, kicking and screaming, of course.
I would refuse again if you asked me to do it. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I think that's what I kind of agreed with myself, that I would resist, but if you pushed, that would be I'd just do it. There's no biggie.
Why?
Because I love you, Roseanne.
Well, I thought my girlfriend's dad was hard to impress, but I haven't had to learn a new language.
Okay, this was my publicist, Alistair Kwan, and I owe him the success of the film, I reckon. Because he took the ball and ran with it, and basically made it bigger than I ever dreamed it would be. So.
No, it's because the subject was so big that,
Right. Thanks. That's very good. Okay, so the sessions were sold out, and then they added an extra session, and that was sold out. And then at the end of every screening, I was inundated with people, and I heard such sad stories, running the gamut from couples who were doing exactly the same thing to a really, really sad story, a Chinese New Zealander whose mother had disowned her. She'd had children, and her mother didn't know anything about them, had never met her own grandchildren, and she basically broke down, and I just had to, we just had to give a hug to each other because it was so difficult. She was like, my life has been so awful. And I thank you for making this film so that people can see what can happen.
I think most people went to see it because it was a locally made film and it was well publicised and it was really interesting and well made.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, I like that plug for me. Did you have any negative responses to it?
Yeah, a couple of my parents' friends went to see it, and so I suppose they were towing the generational line that daughters should not be airing this sort of stuff in public, and they walked out, I think, for a few minutes. And
seriously, they walked out?
Yeah, they did walk out.
Yeah, a few people walked out, yeah.
Certainly I have found in the past when I've been wanting to interview Chinese or make stories about them, is that they have been very concerned that whatever we did, it would show the Chinese community in a good light. And what you did was actually rip the cover off and expose your parents, which is a big no-no.
And have your parents seen the film?
What do they think about the film?
What do your parents think about you making the movie?
This is the million-dollar question that everyone's been asking. That was something that I am a little bit ashamed of. My parents hadn't seen the film before the Auckland audiences saw it, because I'd literally left everything to the last minute, and I got the final screening copy of the film to the festival on the morning of its first showing. One very vehement criticism I got after the film was shown was that you didn't even give your parents the chance to see what everybody else was going to see at the festival, what the whole Chinese community. You were exposing them to the whole Chinese community without giving them any chance to address or even steel themselves for what they were about to undergo. So, so there is a bit of regret there.
I guess I was worried that a lot of our hard work might have been undone by what your film was saying, and but there's nothing I could do about that, because you weren't gonna just not release the film.
All I can say is that my intentions were not to hurt them. I really didn't want to hurt them, because what kind of idiot goes through the process of trying to placate her parents and then kind of jeopardizes it by making a film like this deliberately to hurt them.
The fact that some things happen in the film that are pretty personal to you and me, but there's also like footage of your parents which you didn't have permission to use, and that the fallout could have been really, really bad if they decided to watch or make a big thing of it. So it could have been, it could have all turned to custard. And who could you have blamed at that point? Would you have blamed them?
You're insinuating that it's kind of all on my head, really.
Well, if a film that you makes your parents suddenly disapprove of me even more, then it kind of is on your head, isn't it?
I won't get a chance to address that until I'm in front of the camera.
Sure. Who's being interviewed here? Who's the real interviewee?
Before it screened at the festival, that they knew that it was being made?
Yeah, they knew it was being made, because it hit the way I told my mum was in a really roundabout way. It's a very Chinese way. You don't tell them to their face. I said to my mum, "Mum, I'm going to be on the Good Morning show tomorrow morning. Can you please record it for me?" And it just so happened that Good Morning thing was about Banana in a Nutshell. I think it was the very first time that I was on TV talking about the film. And so my mum dutifully recorded it, but I knew that in recording it she'd also watch it. And I came home and she said to me in a very angry voice, I'm not going to record any more of your things if there's going to be more of them. I don't want to hear about what you're doing. I didn't know you're making this film. How dare you make this film? And I just don't involve me in it in any way. I don't want to hear anything about it from now on. So that was pretty clear.
Amidst all of this, other cogs were in motion. We kind of wanted a summer wedding, and we didn't really want to wait a year and a half until the summer after the one coming up, so we decided it was time to knuckle down, despite the one trouble that was on everyone's mind.
I think the funny thing about it was, although the film itself focused on Dad and his quite public opposition to everything, the matriarch in the Chinese family, funnily enough, holds just as much power, but in a very quiet way. So Dad, it was a bit easier to read his intentions. Mum, she was a bit of a wild card.
Well, we were kind of worried, really. Yeah, I mean, we weren't sure that your parents were even going to, at least that your mother would even appear.
In terms of thinking about whether they would come, I don't really know what I thought about that. I think I decided pretty early on that I didn't mind if they didn't, because it was their choice, and ultimately I decided I wasn't going to lose any sleep over it.
How could you not lose sleep over it?
Because
knowing how much it meant to me.
Well, I actually didn't know how much it meant to you.
But if you think about it, my own parents not coming to our wedding.
If I think about it, but maybe I didn't think about it that much. Because, I mean, yeah, I mean, I suppose it would have been really bad, but at the same time I wasn't going to have a really bad wedding because of it. I wasn't going to have a sort of evil spectre hanging over the whole thing if they weren't there. I guess that would have happened, wouldn't it?
I think the Chinese way of reacting to things that maybe they don't approve of is to be silent about it and not talk about it and let your actions show how you feel. I think that it reflected their ongoing anxiety about whether or not you and Stephen could be happy together, because as parents they sort of loved you very much and they really wanted you to be happy, and I think that through that whole week of the wedding actually was really important for them.
My relatives from Hong Kong, from my dad's side, started arriving just a few days before the wedding.
Surprisingly, we're kind of used to this anyway, since we haven't had a documentary maker in the family.
So let's see, Dad is the eldest. The next one down is Auntie Isabella. She's the sensible older sister, but at heart she's very soft and very sweet and loves us all to bits. Uncle Eddie is next. Oops.
two of them are kind of like twins. Whenever they go overseas together, they always just go out and eat. They always go out and find the best food and then they eat it together. It's kind of the way they bond, brotherly bond. There was Auntie Evelina, and she was the youngest auntie, the youngest and coolest auntie, who was very supportive. Auntie Evelina said to me that she was here to make sure that Mummy and Daddy both went and behaved. So that was Auntie Evelina, and she brought her whole family along. So Uncle Fred, who's a very big investment capitalist, he calls himself, and our cousins Joey and Jonathan, and they were really cool. Before the wedding, even on the day of the wedding, it was very unclear whether or not she was actually coming, and that was actually all you wanted, really. That was probably one of the major anxieties around the wedding, that both Mummy and Daddy did come to a wedding.
This is the first time you'll see a bridesmaid shave.
You want to see what I ate? For lunch, I had half a salami, I had half and I don't know, it's kind of a roll. Are you waiting? No, I'm just thinking.
Aren't you worried that you might get acid reflux during the ceremony?
Possibly. But it's a chance I'm going to take, and I had some honey roasted peanuts.
Right.
And a big glass of water because this was really spicy, which is why it's not finished.
Don't worry, it's always funny on those home video shows and the bride vomits on the groom.
Sorry?
Nothing.
Man, you're really sweating and this gears up.
Have something really cold, drink something really cold, and you're going to feel ace.
Right, this wedding is going to happen.
Everyone's very calm, it's an eerie feel of calm. Calm before the storm. Might just happen.
So it comes down to this though, sitting on the lower bunk of a child's bed in a blacked out room in the countryside.
Romantic, eh? This is like, it's weird. I was just telling these guys this is like the third act of a film because everything seems to be tying together really nicely, which is amazing. And I don't quite know what to feel. I don't trust it, you know? But
That's good, because there's a twist. Oh, you got the phoenix and the dragon bangles.
oh, did you know that?
Yeah, now you can deflect bullets. You know, finally. It's the classic.
Around the bells, if you're okay with the memorization.
Yeah, I've changed a little bit. Instead of I love you unconditionally, I've changed it to I love you for who you are. Who's got the okay? But I think I'm alright. Yeah. Shut up, Zane.
I can always prompt you with a few
Because
bits
it's
and
not
pieces.
completely unconditional. If he hits me or something, then it's not, you know.
So are we all set, my friends? Yes.
Quite nervous.
Okay, I can't see it. All right. And then you look okay?
Oh, yes. Okay, great. Can't forget that.
Which of course Ange is going to hold for you. Yes.
Oh, right, that's right. I think I'll
Okay.
I was walking down the aisle with my dad and it was raining and I was thinking, oh crap, it's raining. But I remember thinking, feeling really just elated. Just, I can't believe we've made it here. I knew that as soon as I saw my mum in the audience, I'd start crying or something. And I managed to not do that, but stupidly when my sister started saying the poem, it all came out and I couldn't stop myself.
I wanted to tell you of the protective embrace of parents and of how they guide you to the edge when you are ready to take your first flight. and of how they watch with fear and love in their eyes as you step off the edge and find your wings. I wanted to tell you of the feel of wind in your hair and the chime of the wood pigeon in your own place, and of how 4 bare feet entwined can discover another country. I wanted to tell you, but you already know.
Stephen, you may now kiss your bride.
Nothing to do or say, nothing but more and sky meandering by, and everything is green and blue. It's so much easier to see with you that it's green and blue. Screen sky leaps out like a magic eye and looks at the green and smiles and waves a hello, and we don't ask what we don't know.
Do I look different?
Yep, you look more mature and poised.
That's good.
The geeky girl we once knew is long gone.
Congratulations. Thank you for the beautiful song. You're so getting married and making me cry like a baby.
You see through white and blue, so green and blue, and you seem to say that everything's a million miles away. I don't wanna find that anything is on my
Stop touching them, Roseanne.
No, my stupid Hollywood tape's coming off.
That's my job. Let me touch them.
and cover our heads and hide where everything is green and
I think
blue.
it's going to sound really cheesy, but I think I did what anyone who was in my situation would do. Maybe not everyone, but anyone who realised what was at stake and that it wasn't too much effort to get. If you really are in love, then you can leap tall mountains. Or learn a few phrases of a foreign language. It's no biggie. It's no biggie.
But you're not talking about a few phrases here. You're hoping to learn the whole language, right?
Well, sure.
Thank you for everyone to come to this momentous occasion of my giving away my last daughter. It is with great mixed feelings that I come to this meeting, because it is not only a big relief off my shoulders, but I feel sure that I have somehow convinced Stephen to take on the baton that I left him, to continue to protect, care for, and educate my daughter. My first encounter with Stephen was not so long ago, when he invited me to see him face to face for a coffee in the mid-afternoon in Palmer's Nurseries. And as soon as we settled down, and before we ordered our coffee, he started to practice his Mandarin on me, which turned out to be a fairly reasonable and well-practiced essay to tell me why I can trust him to take the hands of my daughter. And after his long dissertation, which I must say that he has done a very good job and spent a huge amount of time in practicing it, although I don't know whether he understands the word that he said. That I go in my normally very straightforward way and tell him what I expected of him if he wants to take the baton from me, and that he should continue to further his Chinese learning, and also to take the opportunity to immerse into the wealth of Chinese civilization, an area which I have not too successfully passed in total to my daughters. Stephen accepted my challenge, and man to man, and I expect him to do the job. Then it is time for us to order our coffee, only to find that the coffee shop has closed already. So the next important message I have told Stephen from then on, and I think that I hope that he would take this very seriously, and that is, if you proposed, you must carry on and consummate. So I'm still waiting for my coffee. Thank you.
You're all expecting a rebuttal to that. I'll start by giving credit where credit is due. So I want to thank Roseanne's parents, Dr. Liang and Mrs. Liang, for bringing up such a fantastic, beautiful, brilliant, accomplished and all-round superb human being. I'd like to propose a toast to the parents, Mum, Dad, Mrs. Liang and Dr. Liang, for doing a superb job in bringing us up, supporting us and of course handling the challenges of a cross-cultural union so well. Cheers. To the parents.
Cheers to the parents. I'd like to propose a toast, and I'll just get my notes in order. A happy couple.
Silent rocks like sentinels stand over ghosts of seagulls and sand
We're very pleased with Stephen too that on the first date, when he brought one friend and Roseanne hauled along her three best friends, that he was in it for the long haul.
Roseanne, to your true love, my friend, to Stephen Harris.
I'd just like to say that if you sometimes one gets a little depressed about the things that happen in New Zealand and around the world at this time, but when I see you as the holders of the future, I feel a great deal of hope. And bravo. And that's it.
I think that Mummy and Daddy were in such a great mood all the way through that week up to the wedding, that the wedding was just a natural climax to it, and that the whole day, I mean, these are Daddy's favourite people in the entire world, you know, his sisters and his brother are like the people that are most important to him. They were just like, wow, you know, this is amazing. We had no idea that this was going to be this beautiful.
My mum was laughing at me at one point, and she looked really happy, and she was genuinely laughing when I said that I'd left all my toothbrush and undies and stuff at home, at my parents' home, because I didn't know that after the wedding I was expected not to come back to this house anymore. It really saddened me that I wouldn't see this room again, and that I wouldn't sleep in this creaky old camp bed again, and that I wouldn't, you know, wake up and eat a breakfast again.
And they showed their approval by taking lots of photos, lots and lots of photos, and every combination of relatives that you can imagine. I remember one of my favourite photos or moments, I guess, from the entire wedding is right after the dinner, when the music started playing, after you'd had your bridal dance. The first couple up on the floor after that was Mummy and Daddy. It was amazing, and they were like really having a lot of fun by that stage, and I just thought, wow, this is great, this is such a great moment, and there's a photo of that moment. It's wonderful.
And I stood in the sky.
was a fairy tale time. And I don't say that because I want a really good cinematic moment. I say it because that was how it felt for me. It felt like we'd quested for this amazingly, supremely beautiful, happy ending, and we'd got it. And if you put it in a film today, people would snort and say, what a boring, happy ending, but that's what actually happened.
Nope.
Yeah.
Sound like it.
Hey!
Okay, so how do you have certain chores that are falling into certain people?
I suppose I vacuum and try to do the dishes whenever there are any.
Actually, yes, he does do the vacuuming. But I definitely enjoy cooking more than you do, which is good because
I don't mind that at all.
But then he'll do stuff like if I'm not here, he'll eat. He'll not eat or eat cereal for dinner, and that's bad.
Never.
That's naughty.
Never ever.
And if he does,
It's never happened.
What's so wrong with cereal?
It's a filthy lie.
Well,
Mind
it's
you,
just
I did
wrong.
ask that also, but I just wanted to sidestep the whole thing.
it's wrong. It's just wrong. You can't have cereal for dinner.
But you can have noodles for breakfast.
Yes. They have noodles for breakfast in lots of places.
And you can also have cereal for breakfast.
Yeah.
Yet
cereal
noodles
for
is a
breakfast.
dinner food or a lunch food.
Noodles is an anytime food. You can have noodles anytime.
And you could argue, therefore,
No, not therefore. Cereal is meant for
is
no.
an
Cereal's
anytime
meant for
food.
breakfast.
Midnight even.
No, not
Nice.
no. Bad.
5 a.m.
Must be cooked and nutritious and hot. Hot is good.
Nutritious. Isn't cereal on the big fat end of the healthy food pyramid? Soundman is nodding.